Yippee-ki-yay, motherfuckers. Ask and you shall receive. Die Hard turned 35 years old in 2023. This one was, of course, directed by John McTiernan, who brought you Predator, another great 80s action flick. And it stars Bruce Willis as probably one of the most likable action heroes you are ever going to come across in John McClane. John McClane is a New York City policeman who's visiting his estranged wife, played by Bedelia, phenomenally might I add, along with his two daughters. He joins her at a holiday party in the headquarters of the Japanese-owned business she works for. And she's pretty high up on the corporate ladder over there, so she is a very busy lady. But everything gets all interrupted by a group of German terrorists who take over the exclusive high-rise and everyone in it. And these terrorists are led by the very fun Hans Gruber, played by Alan Rickman. And very soon, John McClane realizes that there's no one to save the hostages but him. Die Hard, to me, is one of the quintessential action classics. Like, if you are a fan of exciting, pulsating action sequences, some brilliant fight choreo, everything in between, just the fireworks that go off in this movie, and just the rush of adrenaline, Die Hard is a go-to for a lot of people. At any given point of the year, might I add. I'll save it. I'll save it for later. But there is so much goodness about Die Hard, like, where do I even begin? The direction by John McTiernan is absolutely pristine. He'd already proven that he could put out a very exciting action movie with Predator, and the framing of his actors and how he shows the situations that John McClane gets himself put in, like the claustrophobic sequence where McClane is stuck inside an air vent and one of Gruber's goons is trying to shoot him through the vent, or even just climbing up an empty elevator shaft. McTiernan really knows how to send shivers up and down your body just by showing you the situation. And then when hits the fan, when guns start firing everywhere, the music starts swelling up. Great musical score, might I add. I really don't think that's talked about enough in Die Hard. But, my God, these action sequences it gets me so excited. But it also makes me a little bit squeamish, because this does get pretty bloody. This is definitely rated R. But it's also such a smart screenplay, because it establishes John McClane as probably one of the most likable action heroes you will ever see in your life. Not just because of the quips that he has throughout this runtime, but the script also makes him so vulnerable. It doesn't make John McClane look like this roided up badass who's just mowing people down. And let's face it, if John McClane did not need anybody's help, like if you didn't have all those police officers outside basically commandeering the mission, like the principal from The Breakfast Club is in this movie, and I always forget that every time I rewatch it. He is so funny. But you know what I mean? Like, if they made John McClane this invincible badass, which no matter how much the terrorists throw at him, nobody can be able to stop him. Like, if he was established as this superhuman-like being, I don't think Die Hard would have worked as well as it does. But it's very smart. He is going to visit his wife and his two children, and you feel so much for him because you see that his wife is now going by her maiden name under the work directory. And also the fact that this character does not want to fly anywhere. He is deathly afraid of airplanes. Some would say he's kind of a wimp flying around, but I know plenty of people, a lot less tougher than John McClane actually is, that are definitely afraid of flying as well. So the fact that anybody can look at John McClane just in that opening scene and relate to him, that makes Die Hard work so much more than it actually does on the surface. And also the fact that Bruce Willis is playing this character, like, there's nobody else that could have pulled this off as well as he did. This might have been the movie that established Willis as the badass of the 90s. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure it was Die Hard that established Bruce Willis as a household name. And it's hard to argue against it, man, because he is magnificent in this flick. As is Alan Rickman, and honestly, like, this is one of his signature roles. May the man rest in peace. But the fact that they have a British man playing a German terrorist and he has this really thick accent. Like, yeah, as someone who's watched Harry Potter throughout his entire childhood, and then the first time I turn on Die Hard when I was like a teenager, I hear Snape just talking in this German accent, and I just think it's downright silly. And like, I can tell it's not a real accent, but you just can't help but be enthralled by what Rickman is doing here. It would be very easy for him to approach a terrorist character and just deliver it in the ice-cold, stoic cadences that you would get used to him when he did Snape. But no, this guy he's so entertaining, guys. And I think what makes Die Hard all the more impressive, the conflicts between the hero and the villain you don't really get those two locked in a room together until maybe the last 10-15 minutes or so. These guys are just communicating through walkie-talkies to really amp up the tension and the feud. And I think for a movie that came out back in the late 80s, that was unheard of, and it's really, really impressive looking back on it. Which again, just goes to show you that with likable characters, great screenwriting, very funny dialogue, and not to mention the action set pieces that come along the way, and some of the special effects that we get, especially towards the climax, oh my god. Like, they pulled all these effects off back in the late 80s, guys. And it looks a lot more convincing than some of these other action movies that are trying to copy the Die Hard formula. Like, this is one of those essential action movies that I lump in there with the best of the best, and it remains one of the most influential action movies to this very day. It's a superbly directed feature film. It is very exciting for the whole 2-hour, 10-minute runtime. Bruce Willis is extremely entertaining and likable and charming as our hero. Alan Rickman is very hilarious and intimidating as our villain. The action sequences are bloody, they're brutal, they're raw, they're gritty. Like, this movie basically checks all the boxes as to having everything I want in an action flick. Now, let me get to the reason why I'm sure the majority of you clicked on this video. I have been very vocal in my stance about whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not. And with the resounding results of the poll that I put out on my Twitter account, whether or not people wanted me to review this for the holiday review, it was a resounding yes from you guys. And honestly, I'm glad I'm reviewing this movie right now, because Die Hard is an excellent action movie. Christmas movie? Hell no. And I know there's people watching this right now that are probably disagreeing with me, and they really are chomping at the bit to get down in those comments and be like, Zach, how in the hell could you think this is not a Christmas movie? It takes place on Christmas Eve. He is going to a holiday party, Zach. If the holiday party is not in this movie, it wouldn't work. And I understand where those people are coming from. But I've always found that argument to be extremely hollow. Just because this movie takes place during Christmas, that doesn't make this a Christmas movie, guys. That's honestly like saying Mad Max is a Thanksgiving movie because all that chaos just happens to take place on the last Thursday of November. Like, that is not enough. And let me tell you why this movie is not a Christmas movie. First of all, John McTiernan did not make this movie to actually be a Christmas classic. It was never intended to be a Christmas classic because, again, this movie was released in July of 1988. If it was meant to be a Christmas movie, it would at the very earliest be released like mid-November. And also, Bruce Willis himself has said that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie.
Die Hard is not a Christmas movie.
I am glad at least he agrees with me. And think about it this way, guys. If you had eliminated the whole Christmas backdrop from Die Hard, would it have really changed the story much, if not at all? Because I feel like if he was just going to his wife to go and visit her, and then he recognizes that, oh, she has changed her last name back to her maiden name. Like, he could go visit her at any time of the year that he wanted to. Maybe to go have visitation rights with his 2 young kids. You know what I mean? Like, if you took Christmas out of the equation entirely, you probably would have had Alan Rickman and his group of German terrorists come in and basically wreak havoc. Also, everybody trying to stretch this and say, oh, John McClane is like the epitome of Jesus. John McClane was shot, he rises from the dead, and he saves everybody. Well, if that was the case, then Die Hard would be an Easter flick, my friends. And think about Die Hard compared to an actual Christmas movie, like, say, Elf, which also turned 20 years old. I've already reviewed Elf on my channel, so those of you who have been with me for a while already know what I think of Elf. I think it's amazing. But Elf's whole story is so dependent on the fact that it actually takes place during Christmas. If you took Christmas out of the script of Elf, Jon Favreau basically wouldn't have had a classic, and Will Ferrell's career would never have been launched like it is, because he wouldn't have had Elf. How about How the Grinch Stole Christmas? He is learning all of these themes about the meaning of Christmas and whatnot. His heart is growing 3 sizes that day once he discovers that the Who's basically don't need all these gifts. Does John McClane really learn the true meaning of Christmas? Is that his main goal in this? No. Is that the main goal of the script? I highly doubt it. So as far as I see it, my friends, absolutely, Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. No freaking way. Because at its crux, Die Hard is one of the essential action movies that anybody can watch at any given point of the year. I really don't have many issues with Die Hard. Every performance is fantastic. The technicals are out of this world. And it leads to probably one of the most satisfying resolutions and demises of a villain I've ever seen. Like, if you haven't seen Die Hard, it doesn't have to be in the month of December, but I highly advise checking this one out if you haven't. I'm gonna give Die Hard an A+. Whew, that felt good to get all that baggage off my chest, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into this video, and thank you guys for convincing me to review this. I love talking all new things, movies, and entertainment over here on the regular. This channel is a great community of film lovers and entertainment lovers alike, and y'all are invited to join us. So please do consider becoming a subscriber and tap on that thumbs up button on your way out, and let me know, what side of the spectrum do you fall on? Do you absolutely disagree with me? Are you adamant that you have to watch Die Hard in December? Or do you agree with me? And let me know what your favorite actual Christmas movies are. Let me know if there's any real Christmas movies that you guys actually want me to review, because I've gotten a couple more requests coming in. I'm gonna try and squeeze a little bit more, but there's also a whole bunch of new releases on the docket in the month of December, like Wonka the Iron Claw. I'm gonna be seeing both of those this upcoming week. Lots to look forward to over here and much, much more, guys. So you don't want to miss anything else. Subscribe when you can. Y'all are the best, guys. And with all that being said, yippee-ki-yay, commence that back talk, motherfuckers.